I'm Louie Weaver from Petra. I'd like to share with you some ideas that have solved the problems I've experienced my whole career as a drummer. I don't claim to be the best drummer in the world, or the worst. I'm just a pro being used of God to be a witness for Him. Today I'm going to take you back to the basics. We're going to cover getting the best sound from your drums through tuning and selecting cymbals that complement the way you play. Then, in case you get the idea that being a pro drummer is all glamour and spotlights, we'll take you on the road with Petra and show you what it's really like. Let's get started. Hi, we're at DW with John Good, the Vice President of DW, and he's going to show you what you look for when you're selecting your drums to make up your kit.
Thank you, Louie. For many years, I think people have looked at drums, the drum shell, the whole idea of the instrument as just a wastebasket with plumbing around the edges, you know? And what we've really spent more time than I think most people have is considering the drum as an instrument and how it works or doesn't work as a unit, whereas there are many pieces of this unit, you know, to make up a whole drum kit. So in selecting a kit, what we try to do is make sure that all the tones of the shells match up timbre-wise to one another.
John, is that why that when I had these old kits long ago and I'd always have this 10, 12, 13, 14, and I hit my 12 and it sounded wonderful, and it had this low, nice tone, and I hit this 13 and it sounded higher.
Yes.
And I never could tune them right.
Because it's a dysfunctional kit. Because a lot of kits, you'll find your high tom, your higher rack tom, may have a lower inherent resonant frequency than your lower tom. Okay?
Is that called timbre?
That's
No.
well, this is the timbre, or timbre I like to call it.
Oh, timbre,
because
sorry.
there's no A in that word anyway.
Okay.
But this is the actual resonant frequency. This is the fundamental of this drum shell right here. Okay? Now this is the same size
Here, let me hold
shell. Yeah, you hold that one. And to see if this audio can pick this up. Now you see
you
how
guys
much
got that.
lower this shell is than that one. But yet these two drum shells are exactly the same size and the same composition.
Yeah.
So these different notes are incredibly important when you're trying to go and tune up your drums. You may find, you know, that you have a drum that doesn't want to sit there in tuning, right? It might not be a bad drum, but it has no business being
With
next
those other
to
drums.
these other drums, correct. So this process of selecting the shells to work together is called timbre matching, and it's the basis with which we start making drums.
Of course, John, there's a lot of different materials that they're building drums out today.
That's right.
DW uses maple. Why?
Yes. Well, first of all, I like the sound of maple. Don Lombardi and I decided that maple drums is what we wanted to make. And maple has a long, now this isn't a girl, Louie. This is a maple vibration,
Maple,
okay? It's a long, slow vibration. That means that there's a long resonance there.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of companies make drums out of birch, for example, all right? Now, birch, if you can visualize this, is a very fast and shorter decay,
Yeah.
okay? Fast vibration, shorter decay.
Yes.
One thing you want to watch is if you're going to make a birch drum, make it all birch. That's fine and dandy because they'll all, you know, have the same characteristic. But you don't want to blend maple and birch together. You got this long vibration going and this short little one in the middle. And if they're fighting each other, that doesn't work.
Well, see, I never knew that. See, I had a set of drums once was made all out of birch. And then to get a different size tom in it, the only tom they made in that size was a mixture of wood.
Birch
and that
and
drum
mahogany.
never sounded as good as the other drums. And
Or it just didn't work with
it
the
didn't
other
work
ones.
with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
John, what about plies? How does that affect the sound of the drum?
Glad you asked. Like the number of plies?
Yeah.
For example, your drums...
Mine are 6.
Right,
My
your
6
drums
ply.
are 6 ply. Okay, here's a 6 ply shell like yours, okay? This is a 12 by 14 inch tom. And it has a sound like this. Okay?
Yeah.
Now here's another, just for the sake of demonstration.
Right.
6 ply tom with a 6 ply reinforcing hoop like that one. And it has this character of sound. Okay, a little lower. Now here is one that is a 5 ply shell with a 3 ply reinforcing hoop. Okay, now listen how this is all maple and they're all the same size shell.
Yeah. Much lower.
Okay, once again, 6 and 6. 6 and 6 again. And the 5 and 3. Isn't it an incredible difference?
It's a lot lower. Why is it lower?
Well, first of all, remember this fact. Given these same materials, the thicker the shell, or the more plies, the higher the pitch.
Oh.
The thinner the shell, or the less plies, the lower the pitch. It's a very important thing.
But you still do get a lot of different pitches out of the same ply. You get different pitches.
Absolutely. You get many of this, you know, as you can see, those first two shells were miles apart, tonality-wise.
And that's why you timbre match drums together, so you won't get that weirdness.
So your high tom won't have a lower pitch than your low tom.
Yeah. So John, what else are we looking for?
Well, bearing edges, a very important topic, okay?
Yeah.
Two things you want to look for. You take the head off of a drum, you want to look for the countercut on the edge. We'd like to see a countercut. If the edge is too pointed, if it comes to the outside at a point like this, okay, there's just not enough contact when the drum head sits on that edge. You're asking too much out of this little tiny last ply of material, okay?
Right.
So we like to see a countercut of 2 ply. Our plies are 30 thousandths of an inch thick, so that's about a 1/16 of an inch countercut. You don't want it to get too fat, I mean really rounded, because then if you got too much contact, then the drum sounds boxy and muddy. Okay,
right.
It's
I
shocking
had drums
to
that
show.
sounded like that, and that was exactly the same thing. And they had lacquer over that too.
Oh yeah, well that's another topic. Then you also want to look to see how even they are. Okay, if you have to, geez, take them to the counter, to the glass counter. It isn't going to be perfect, but you can spin it and see if there's a great big gap there. You're never going to be able to tune that up.
Right.
It's because sometimes you're tuning the drum and you get a high spot in the shell and it'll change all your tuning like that.
Right.
Or if you get it pretty close and there's always a buzz in the shell, that's from a dip in the shell. So you want to check these two elements.
That's good, guys. And two, if your drums do this, take them to your local drum shop or your music shop, and if they don't have people that can do it, they can find people that can put a re-edge on your drum so your drum may tune up better.
Yeah, here we check all of our shells on granite, a precision ground granite slab.
Pretty flat, huh?
Oh, accurate to 2.5 thousandths of an inch. Your hair is thicker than that. So we put the light down through it. If we can see and measure more than plus or minus 5 thousandths of an inch, we grind it, cut it, and check it again. This happens between 4 and 6 times with our shells.
That's great.
So it's a very important thing. It's like the needle on a record. Oh, and by the way, since you've got the drum head off at the store, you might want to check on the inside to make sure that there's not a tremendous lacquer buildup. Now, you might ask why.
I would ask why. John, I took a set of drums one time and put extra lacquer inside.
Oh.
No, huh?
Yeah. Okay, you ever been playing a kit sometimes, and especially when you hit the floor toms, it's just like you might as well be bouncing a basketball.
Yeah.
You can hear that air compression ping like when you punch a beach ball, you know, and it seems like it overrides the low end of the drum.
Right.
Well, that is a tremendous lacquer reflective surface built up on the inside of the drum. Oh. If you've got that problem, you're faced with having to either take it out to get the warmth of the drum back in, or put foam strips in there to break up the high frequency. There's a myriad of things you could do.
John, what about relative sizes of drums?
I'm glad you asked that. There's a myth about drums getting longer and longer and longer.
I see a lot of guys having those long, deep drums.
And it concerns me on a retail level as well as a concept. A lot of people think that to get that long cannon, long sound out of a drum, you have to have a real long instrument.
Not so, huh?
No, not at all. Actually, it's flip-flopped. The longer the drum, the shorter the sustain of the note.
So, like vibrations take a long time to get down there. And
Exactly. The shorter the drum, the longer the sustain of the note. For example, when you strike a drum, let's say a 16 by 16 floor tom, you play a single stroke roll on it. You hear 2 notes audibly, ba-dow, and then the rest of it starts doing the backstroke in there, Well, there's 2 major events taking place. When you hit that drum, first of all, there's a circular vibration that starts down that shell, okay?
Right.
Lightning fast. Then there's an air column created as well, all right? Now, if you consider if you were sitting across the table from me and you put your hand on the desk and I smack the desk, you'd feel that vibration right away.
Right.
But I've been drinking coffee, so I won't do this to you. But if I were to blow air your direction,
yeah,
that air would take longer to get to you than that vibration did, right?
Right.
So with this vibration that goes down that shell and that air column that's created by striking the head, the longer that shell gets, the least likely these two elements are bound to reach the bottom head at an interval that makes sense with each other.
Right.
Okay? So they start coming and going against each other, and they create standing waves. And basically they start canceling each other out. So the longer the shell, the shorter the sustain. The shorter the shell, the longer the sustain. Yeah. Very important point.
Some of you guys with big long drums, you might want to cut them in half and have 2 drums. John, what about drum finishes?
Okay, I'm glad that we could talk about this because there's 2 major areas, you know. First of all, painted finishes.
Yeah.
For a long time, people have been using lacquer. And lacquer's okay, but lacquer has a short life. You know all those little lines you see a lot in drums, you know, and finishes?
Yeah. Right.
That's usually there due to shrinkage, all right? When you use like lacquer thinners as a base, you know, sometimes it takes months for that finish to dry. You've sanded and polished it and done all this good stuff to it, and it looks dry, but it's really not. It might take months to bleed out all those solvents through there. And when that finally happens, the finish gets smaller because there's a void behind the finish, and it shrinks, okay? I like to see the industry go to polyester, which is a much more durable finish. It can be thinner because it has a high UV rating. In other words, when the light goes through the finish, it looks very dimensional because it's got a high UV rating. And you can make it very thin, and it's very hard, okay? But when you use certain lacquers, they're from, you know,
it's not going to shrink like the other one did.
No, it won't shrink because it uses different elements in it to vaporize the material when you're spraying it. But what I'm trying to say about the lacquer has a very low UV rating, okay? So to make something look very deep and dimensional, you've got to add a lot of lacquer on. So then you get into building up the finish too thick, and it has a tendency to want to choke the shell.
Choke the shell.
Yeah.
You're using a new finish right now. You're covering drums now, and I thought that was taboo.
Well, it is taboo in certain applications.
Because everybody has gone to lacquer finishes, like everybody got away from that. Why have you gone back to it?
Well, I've gone back to it primarily because we came up with a new thinner shell. A lot of the markets are going to thicker shells, and they're afraid to put the covering on because it really chokes up a thick shell.
Right.
But like I think I said a little earlier, we've got a new thinner 5x3 shell that is a delightfully it's delightfully resonant and loud and has a very nice lower fundamental. With this, we're able to put these thinner, now they're not as thick as they used to be in the old days, but these thinner laminates, we call it a finish ply shell. And it's bringing back those old romantic finishes like white marine pearl and Ringo's Black Oyster and Blue Diamond. You had a Blue Diamond, kit? Yeah, well, we put that on the shell with a butt seam, not a lap seam like this, where when you put the drum head on, it throws it off center. We butt seam at the bearing edge so that it doesn't disrupt the edge, and it's a thinner material. It's not even as thick as a ply of the shell, okay? And it's more durable. If a guy's doing jobs where he wants to put his drums in the back seat of his car, geez, you got that high-tech polyester finish in there, and I'd be scared to death. And these are, you know, there's a place for all these things, but this finish ply kit with this pearl on the outside is great for that kind of thing. And it really looks good, it's classic, and it doesn't inhibit the sound hardly at all.
Right. Well, that's good, John. Tell us, what should they look for in like hardware today? Your hardware is very sturdy.
Yeah. Well, hardware today is funny. You know, on the drum itself, I'm seeing a lot of the long lugs that go on the shell.
Right.
And it's like, for example, we're trying to make this happen, right?
Right.
You choke this drum up with a whole bunch of really extravagant hardware all over it, and you're going to...
I see.
What do you got here?
Yeah.
So I'd like to see us having the hardware on the nodal points or the nodal areas of the shell. Less mass is much better for a drum shell. For example, we recommend and always use the rim system. The rim system by Percussion. on every single one of our drums.
Doesn't matter what kind of drum you have, you can put a rim system on your drums. John, how can our people at home apply timbre matching to their drums?
Well, Louie, they can't really apply the timbre matching technique, but they can really look at the timbre tuning technique, okay?
Right.
Now let me explain something very basic and fundamental here. This sound, you're not going to be able to hear necessarily with your drum heads on your drum. I mean, I can do it because I'm pretty good at tuning, but let's face it, a lot of guys have a rough time tuning their drums, all right? So take your drum heads off, and then pick up your shell, and you're going to have some hardware rattling around here, but if you listen to that, okay, you listen to that note, get a pitch pipe out.
Find that note.
Find that note, emulate that note, and write it on the inside of your shell, okay?
Okay.
Now you got this note, let's say it's an A or something, okay? And now you go back and you tune up the drum, you've got your pitch pipe, and you're tuning the heads to this, all right? If you want a straight tone, you're going to tune the top and bottom head to the same pitch, all right? Now, you might find that that A, if that's what it is, isn't quite the image or the type of texture to the fundamental you want out of that drum, but it's very close to it. So if you have to go sneak it up a little sharp or go a little flatter than that, that's fine and dandy.
That's fine.
But once you find out which one works best for that drum in relationship to this reference A note, we'll take and change it. Maybe it's a little bit different than that A, but that won't change, okay?
This is really giving you a reference point, right?
Exactly.
To go from.
That's very well said. It's the reference point to start tuning the drum from.
John, thanks for your time and all the information.
It's my pleasure.
And you guys, let's go back to the studio and talk about tuning and selecting of your drums. Now, everybody can't go to the factory and pick out the drums, but there are a few things you should do when selecting your set. Number one, select a kit that fits the style you want to play. If you're going to play rock and roll, you might want to choose larger drums. If you're playing jazz or pop, you might want to choose smaller drums. I use a mixture of both, but that's just my personal preference, like the 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. In concert, I use an 18 down here. But use the drums that best fit what sound you want to get out of them. Don't just be taken over by what you see in the store. Get in there and decide what you want. Point number 2, after you've decided what sort of set you need, always play the drums before attempting to buy by mail order. Because maybe you can save a few bucks, but remember that some drums sound better than others. My feeling is if your local dealer won't let you play your drums before you buy them, find a new dealer. Point 3, make sure they will tune correctly. By that I mean the pitch relationship between the drums sounds right. You want plenty of pitch separation between the toms. Listen to this. Probably got thirds and fourths there. That's really good separation. Now let's go on to tuning those drums to get those separations. As you can see, I've detuned this drum so I can tune it and show you how I do it. I usually start with the bottom head. If this was a new head, you'd hear the creak and cracking and whatever, but you're not going to hear that because I've already seated it against this sound edge, like we talked with John Good earlier. So I just tightened it up in pitch, till I see all the wrinkles have gone. And I keep my leg against the bottom head so I don't hear any overtones from it interfering up here. This is low, so I'm going to tighten it up some on this side. Low over here, so I'm going to tighten it up. Slow over here, I'm going to tighten it up. So we got a constant pitch pretty much around the whole head. So let's turn it over and see if we can match that on the other side and see if that's where the drum wants to be. So it's that flappy sound. You don't like that. Tune it up till you just feel it snug. I just like to get it snug right there and see if that's where the tone will sound good. I'm tightening up the head. So I've got my legs against the bottom head, so I get none of the vibrations from down there. So this one's low and these are high, so I'm going to tune this low one up. And that one's high, too high. And that one's low. Too low, too high. Tune this down. So I like kind of way all these are in tune with each other, and I'll see if that tone matches the bottom head. So the bottom head's higher. So I like how far that top head playing wise would feel. So I know to go down a little bit on the bottom head. And usually if your drum goes bonk, bonk, and it's choking, you feel like it's like a choking, not a pure tone, it's probably because you got the bottom head tighter than the top head. And I personally have found that that's not the good sound. But you may find that that's the best sound for you to play, so if it is, go for it. So I tuned the bottom head too low a while ago, so I need to go up. But as soon as you get those together, that drum is in tune. So after you get it in tune, put it up with the rest of the drums and see what it sounds like. Sounds good. So look, what's missing? Cymbals. Hi guys, now we're at Peisty, and I want to show you how I pick up my cymbals. Let's start with a ride. This is a dry 21. It's too washy for me. This is a 21-inch power ride. That's too clangy for what I want. Now this is the sound formula of the Signature series. It's the Power Ride 20-inch. Let's see what it sounds like. That's got what I'm looking for. All those overtones on overriding when I ride the cymbal, and the bell just really stands out to me. Let's go with this one. Now this is an 18-inch thin china. Let's see what it sounds like. It just doesn't get where I want it. It sounds thin to me, and I want something heavier over here. So let's try something else. Now this is a 20-inch thin china. Let's see what it sounds like. Now I like that. It just explodes and fills the whole room, and that's what I look for in a china. So let's try another china over here and see what we can get another china on the other side. It's explosive, and in this series they've only got a 14 and a 16, 18, 20, and I've already picked the 20, so it's a good contrast. I think I'll just go with that too. Now this is the heavy hi-hat. Let's see what it sounds like. It's basically, for my ear, too heavy sounding. It doesn't get it. I need something a little lighter than that, so let's try something else. Let's go to a 14. We got a 14 over here. Now these are the 14 sound edge, which means it has a ripple underneath the bottom, so the sound gets out real fast. Now that's what I'm looking for. Let's go with these. Okay, let's try some crash cymbals now. We got to finish out. I used 3, so let's just start seeing what we got. That's just a little too light and thin for the rock and roll style that I'm playing with Petra. So we need to go with something a little bit bigger, I think. Let's try something else. Okay, I didn't like that 15. Let's try a 17 full crash and a 16 thin. I like the 17. It's small. I need a small size, but I don't like the 16. So let's keep the 17 here and try something else bigger back here where the 16 is. Okay, this is a mellow 18-inch crash. Yeah, I think with the rock and roll, that'll really cut through hard. So let's try one more. Let's see if we can find another 18 that fits in with this. Let's try this full crash 18, see what it sounds like. I like it. See what they all sound like together. Now you notice that the cymbals sound a lot better here than they did at Peisty. That's not a coincidence. How the drums and cymbals are mic'd can make all the difference in what the audience hears. What you're hearing here is the work of a top audio engineer here at Pachyderm Studios. But enough of that, we got a show tonight. Let's go. Hey guys, this is morning, really. Just ready to get to the gig. Hey, John's up.
Not really, I'm just sort of here.
This is our good friend Mylan's bus. Our bus is out with Michael Bolton. You know, that guy sings Georgia. That's something. But anyway, we're out on his bus and we really like it. It's really smooth and it's got this big picture window up here. It's really comfortable. You gotta come out and tour sometime. Mickey's here. Okay, this is supposedly Jeff, my best friend that sets my drums up that doesn't want to be on camera.
I really don't want to be on camera. Oh, no. Go take pictures. I don't want to spoil that myth that everybody thinks Louie knows how to set up his own drum kit.
Yo! So here we are, sound checking. What was that? No matter who you are, you're still learning all the time. There's always something to learn, whether it's in your music or your personal life. In part 2 of Back to the Basics, we'll learn about miking, playing techniques, and I'll take you through the solo you saw in this video and explain how you can play it. One never masters something by one day declaring they know it all. That's when the other guy passes you by. The Bible says, let him who boasts, boast in the Lord. Don't be closed-minded about new ideas or methods you don't know or haven't used. A new technique is just different, not right, not wrong. Your guide to right and wrong in your personal life should be the Bible, the Word of God. As a Christian, my main source for this life is Jesus Christ. I would encourage you to let Him be yours too.
Right.